G'day gang, Simo and Ed here for another episode of the Fast Line Track Growth Show.
You're getting better at this, aren't you?
Every time.
Yes.
Where we talk all things karting and business.
Cool.
So Ed, what are we going to talk about today?
Well, we had a little conflab just before we sat down to press record on the video. I think what we're going to do is we're going to talk through 10 questions that you should ask yourself if you own a go-kart track. And these are all questions that are just designed to get you thinking about what you do and how it sort of, builds into your customers and how your business might grow. So these are slightly tough questions on purpose. I'm not sure there's been many laughs today, but it'll be really useful stuff. So we'll have a chat about that.
Oh, and we've had someone write in.
Have we?
Yeah, there's a complaint.
Who's that from?
No, I won't mention any names.
Oh, okay. Oh, him.
Right, let's get down to this.
Cool. Right, so the first question I would normally ask is, what problem does your go-kart track solve?
Oh, that's a good one.
See, you didn't expect that as the first question.
No, right in. Pulling no punches today, I see.
Well, the key to this is to understand your audience.
Yeah.
And I think I'm fairly confident, if you went round all your employees and had a chat with them and said, what problem do we solve as a go-kart track? 80% of them look at you like you've just gone crazy. 20% of them would answer, but I'm not sure many would get it right. And if somebody does, actually, just hang on to them for dear life, because you need good people around you. But it's a really tough question, but it helps you get into the mindset of your customer.
Yeah, and there's probably several problems they do solve.
Oh, yes.
It'll be a different product for each target market too.
Well, that's right. It is.
I mean, look here, for a business, corporate customer, the problem they could solve is making their customers happy. The corporate that's there.
Could be. See, if it was corporate, I'd be thinking about the team building.
Team building, yeah.
What activities can I take all my staff on that they can all engage in? How do we level out the playing field?
You've taken a group of your clients, karting, and the objective of that for you, the problem you were having solved, was to bring those clients closer to you.
Sort of. Well, interestingly, it did do that. What I really wanted them to do was to interact with each other.
Okay.
So if somebody, and that's probably not the answer that you were probably looking for
No.
if you're a go-kart track owner. That's surprised you, hasn't it?
Yeah.
So if you'd have come up to me and asked me that question about what problem have we solved for you this evening, I'd go, you've made it possible for me, for my different clients who don't yet know each other, to interact and be stronger as a unit. It's a tricky one to answer, isn't it?
Yeah.
I've got to quote on the hop today with that answer.
well, you do have some left of field ideas at times.
Have to. This is your competitive edge.
Yeah.
Right, so we'll have a ponder on that. Yeah. But the second question I'd probably ask is, what parts of your go-kart track are the biggest revenue drivers? Now, I don't know what the answer to that will be.
It's got to be the karts, doesn't it?
Has it? You see, if I've got food and confectionery and there's people that just pop in and it becomes a destination that you turn up, I think food and wet sales could quite often be one of the biggest drivers of revenue through my whole business.
I see, the problem I did was I went and thought about UK tracks. Now, UK tracks, on average, don't have a food offering. But when you go to some of the tracks in the US, their food offering is massive.
And Holland?
Yeah. I mean, Michael Schumacher's track's got 2 nice restaurants.
Has it?
Yeah. Customer told me the other day, he goes through 400 pounds of chicken wings. Unbelievable.
You told me this and I so want the rest of
it.
So if that's your track, I know roughly which state it's in America. It's an American track, isn't it? I want your recipe. Is it one of these secrets?
Wasn't it South Carolina or North Carolina track, which is, chicken wing country. So they must have had some damn good wings.
I want to know what that is. And like, crikey, if you've got that much chicken going out, how many people are coming into your place every week to go and buy chicken? My mind starts to float away. So hot on the heels of that then, which parts of your business are not profitable? So it's entirely possible to have the biggest revenue driver in your business earning the most money, but it could be the least profitable or even loss-making sometimes. But I just think if you've got people queuing up and it's just taking a long time to get food and drinks through there, and you've got to have sort of half a dozen staff doing that every hour, you might not be making enough money doing that to go and make a profit. So whilst the revenue figures look good, the cost is just getting eaten away because the systems need to improve. So this type of question just helps you to identify that there might be operational things that need to improve within your business, or you might have been focusing on the wrong thing for quite a while, and there's a better place to make faster, easier, quicker money and still give a fantastic experience somewhere else in your business. I knew we were going to go for laughs today, but it's going to be a tough one today, but I quite like this. This is the stuff that will really get the
These are real hard questions that you do have to ask yourself. And they're the things that are going to move that dial.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of people won't have a P&L, profit and loss, on each sector of the business. And there's very few business owners that I come across. It might be different in different countries. Culturally in the UK, which is where most of my companies that I work with are, it's very rare that when I turn up they have a P&L. You did, I think, but I think that's just because the way your business is set up. I think your P&L.
I think that's because of how long we've worked together. It was you who suggested I look at my P&L on a monthly basis.
Yeah.
You know, looking at a P&L on a monthly basis isn't a lot of help, but it will show you where your margins are and things like this.
And change over time is what you're really interested in. So first of all, am I profitable? So you don't get a nasty surprise at the end of the year when you hand your accounts over. But the other thing is, if there's a change, you can spot it in the month it's happened.
I only take three things away from my monthly profit and loss. Is what is my gross profit? What is my staffing costs?
Yep.
And what is my net profit?
Cool.
Net profit. Well, that's not an accurate thing to look at it from a month to month basis, but over a period of time.
Yeah, my accountant's pretty good, so it never bears any resemblance. I don't recognise my own accounts half the time when he's finished with them. But I pay enough tax. Which leads closely into the next question, which is your cash flow positive every month? So you'll know this if you're getting P&L reports, but if you don't, you need to just work out if month to month you're in a positive position. Now, some tracks out there are going to be seasonal.
Yeah, outdoor tracks are going to struggle with this during the winter months.
They could do. But then if you've got a few facilities there, you've got a building, there's bits and pieces, you don't have to solely focus on your go-karts.
No.
So if you're not cash flow positive every month, then the next question is how can you be cash flow positive every month? Now that might be in the way that the contracts are set up with employees, staffing, typically your biggest cost in any business. But beyond that, you might just be thinking about more the corporate market. They might need some training space.
Yeah.
And if you've got a go-kart track that's not really being used and the buildings are empty, then rent out that space. And most go-kart tracks will have the ability to put some food and drinks on, and usually have a license for alcoholic drinks and things. So you can come in, put yourself into a semi sort of exhibition type space or training arena or something like that. But you can do stuff to generate cash in your business. And then the fifth question today: what is your pricing strategy and why? That is a painful question. That's probably the most painful for today's video actually. What's your pricing strategy? Most people won't have one.
No.
Or it will be historic, or they'll have just added X amount on or X percentage on over the years, or it's what they believe that customers will tolerate. So there is no real strategy other than it's always being done this way. So what is the strategy? And then secondly, and why is it like that? Painful questions.
Yes. You know, we've talked about pricing strategies before on these videos. It's quite important for a kart centre. You know, we've talked about that 3 price point strategy.
Yep.
Where you've got a low price that can get anyone in the door. You've got a high price and value associated with it that you might sell to that elite few.
Yep.
But the pricing of the two and that middle one pushes them into the middle.
Yeah, you want something in the middle that's a little bit aspirational, that's going to leverage some value in there, that will give you hopefully a higher profit margin. That's the thing that people actually want. So that's where the first question around what problem does your kart track solve. If you start to get those things all sorted out, then your pricing strategy becomes simpler. And most people will be aiming for that middle band, and that middle band, importantly, is where you make most of your money, and you can start to build and scale the size of your track off that middle pricing option.
I mean, if you sit and focus on that first question, what problem does your kart track solve?
Yep.
It could revolutionise the pricing strategies of a lot of go-kart centres.
Yeah.
because they've got the mentality that they're there to race.
Yep.
And a lot of the time they're not. And rather than packaging in medals and trophies, start packaging in food and drink.
If it's your...
If they're there to try to bring people together and get them mixing.
If it's more profitable for you to do that potentially. But if it's what your customers want, this is where the balance is. What do your customers or your potential customers want? They want this, great, let's deliver that. Let's deliver what we can and do it exceptionally well. And all things being equal, then I'll probably go for the one with the most profit in. But only if my customers are being looked after and it is all equal for them. Told you there's going to be some heavy questions today. So that's 5 questions. What problem does your go-kart track solve? What parts of your track are the biggest revenue drivers? Which parts of your business are not profitable? Is your cash flow positive each month? And what is your pricing strategy and why? Perhaps that's 6 questions. I'm going to class that as 5. I think that's probably a nice short video that people can get into.
Yeah.
And probably one of the toughest ones to answer, so they can work on it for a longer period of time. If that's bringing them anything where you're sitting there thinking, crikey, what's the answer? Or I haven't really got much down here, or this is a little bit too painful, then don't sit there alone, reach out to us.
Yeah.
We will we'll work with you and help you.
Put some of your answers in the comments below this video. I'd be interested, Don't be shy.
Put it in there. I'll be interested in some of that.
If you don't want to put it in the comments, please email it to us. We're genuinely interested in some of these answers.
I'd probably do that discreetly unless you think you've absolutely nailed it. In which case, I'm all for sharing, but I think while we're working through what that might look like, I think I'd probably just spend a bit of time kicking that around and contemplating it. I'm not sure it's a quick sort of 1-hour session. I think that's probably something you're going to develop with you, your team, some other people bouncing a few ideas around. You could really make a huge difference to your business within a couple of weeks just answering those 5 questions. So take a little bit of time to get it right, and it will pay dividends for many, many years to come.
Yeah. And I think the problem you can solve for the problem you solve for your customers can change over time.
Definitely.
I think that's happened here for me at Fastline. I used to think problem we solved was keeping the karts on the track. Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
And it still probably is a core part of it. But with the newsletters, with these videos, with the Spectacular, it's helping them grow their business too.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think definitely for kart track owners, it'll change over the last 12 months because there will be some people who want to race, but there's lots of people who don't. They just want to go and meet up with their friends and family again. They haven't done it for ages, so they're looking for stuff to do. So they're not bothered about anything else other than just seeing their friends. So if you can create an environment where they can connect again, I think just certainly for the rest of this year, and we're filming this in 2021 by the way, but for the rest of this year I suspect that will be a main driver. You're right, I think it does change over time. It's certainly changed for the last 12 months.
Yeah.
Who knows where that's headed.
All right, well, next week join us again and we will talk about the next 5 questions that you should be asking yourself if you own a go-kart track. We'll give you a week to
digest that.
Digest these 5. But if you click the bell below, you'll be the first to hear when we launch the next one. All right. Uru.
See you soon.